welcome. Doing all right?
Doing all right. How are you doing today?
Good. Just for the audience sake, those who might be watching this is Dr. Joe McKenna. He's our new Director of Safety and Security for our school district.
Yes, sir. Pleasure to be here.
What's one thing you think that we are doing well?
I think kind of above and beyond our partnership with our community resources, specifically our Comal County Sheriff, Verde PD, but really just the network of even those first responders that aren't on our campus every day.
Right.
Just that network, them knowing our campuses, them going out of their way to help us when we may need something from them. So that relationship is invaluable. It's something you can't build that overnight. That takes a whole lot of time.
What's in one area that you hope to help us with that you think that we need to immediately address, and then perhaps there's something long-term we need to address?
Yeah, sure. So I think immediate is there's a couple different ways you can look at it. I think an immediate need is just streamlining, I guess, if you will, our communications and making sure that everyone's on the same page. As a growing district, as a geographically spread out district,
589 square miles.
Just making sure that everyone from our custodians up through our administrators are all on the same page in terms of how we're going to do something and why we're going to do it that way. It's not enough just for our administrators to know, because in an emergency, it may be the custodian, it may be our child nutrition staff that are the first ones on site.
Right.
So we really need to make sure that we have consistency, I think, across our campuses and across our employees.
What's long term, do you think? That's something that we need to sort of address. I mean, that's something that we're going to need to maybe make an investment on, and
sure,
it may take some time, I think.
Again, a growing district, so we have old campuses, we have new campuses, we have renovated campuses, but really looking at our facilities and looking at what can we do better. Again, is physical security is one piece of safety and security,
right?
But it's an important piece. But some of those things to implement can take a little bit of time. They're often expensive items, but really taking a look at our facilities holistically. It doesn't matter if the building's 60 years old or 2 years old.
Right.
Let's try to all bring them up to a standard on what we're going to do facility-wise.
Statewide or national trend, what do you see? What do you see as something that we're going to need to get on board with when it comes to school safety and issues of that?
Assessing mental health and threats and that kind of environment. I think we need to, there's some research in that area. There's some policy in that area, but it's kind of it's still underdeveloped in my opinion. I think there's still a lot of kinks that need to be worked out, but really engaging in this process.
I mean, that's a tough thing. I mean, think about it.
It's hard.
We're right now working on issues. I mean, you've been involved in it already about, if a child or a student does something outside of our schools, and now we're somewhat responsible to really understand that. And
that's where I think some of the policy needs to maybe be adapted to work better in this environment.
You think the policy or the law, you think? I mean, in some sense?
I think probably a little of both. I think you need one to change in order to be able to fix the other. Sometimes you're a little bit hamstrung in what you can do legislatively if certain changes aren't made. But it's that's kind of the area that I see probably growing the most.
Hard question. What's your thoughts on arming teachers, and what do you think about that?
I think it's a strategy that can and should be considered, and it's going to work in some environments and it's not going to work in others. And I also think careful consideration needs to be thought about in terms of who, right? Because one thing that I want to be that I want to make sure we protect is that educational relationship between certain people in our staff in our school and students. You don't want to change that dynamic. We still want to be able to educate kids in the most effective way. And there's so many
it's interesting you said that, because we did talk with some of the administrators and teachers about this, and while they want perhaps officers and different personnel with perhaps an armed weapon on campus, and they feel okay with that, but they themselves as educators don't want to be doing that, because
that changes
they change the dynamics of what their job is, which is to really work with kids and in a different way. So to have that kind of mentality, they've informed me that, hey, that would be a very tough.
Yeah, and it's hard to replicate. I mean, we have these are professional law enforcement officers, especially ours. I mean, they're trained specifically to work in our schools. That's really hard to replicate. I mean, they're years and years of not only training but experience.
Yeah.
That's
school districts who have gone that route, though, are somewhat remote.
Correct.
Or
again, it's those situational factors.
And not all of them, but most are remote, where law enforcement is not necessarily readily available.
Correct.
But I think that's why our partnership with the Comal County Sheriff's Office is so positive, so good.
Yep.
But now we did add a security specialist that who are retired officers, retired law enforcement, retired military, that we hope perhaps one day that they could
be those people.
Right, carry a arm.
But even right now, them not being armed, they're I think still serving a critical function of more supervision. Someone dedicated to
visibility,
being in our halls, working with our students, working with our law enforcement.
Right. But what advice would you give to a student out there who might be watching this in terms of safety and security?
I think, one of the things, you hate to say anything positive comes out of tragedies that we've seen in the spring, but one of the things that, if I had to say something was positive, was that students, it seemed like, I don't want to say they took it seriously, but they finally had enough, right?
Yeah.
They kind of stood up and they said something.
True.
So again, it kind of goes back to that, see something, say something, but be an advocate for yourself. Right, this is about protecting you.
Yeah, and your friends and others.
So one friend maybe thinking of doing something, that's going to get them in trouble. Think about all the other friends that they may harm, or what that may do to their life or career.
Certainly for kids, hey, listen, I know you may feel like you're turning in your friend or somebody you may know, but man, please, you got to, if you see something not right, you got to say it.
Or even you yourself. I mean, if you're going through something or you're having a tough time, go to a friend, go to a parent, go to a teacher, go to someone you trust.
We're here to help. That's
coaches.
Right. What about an advice to a parent out there who may be watching this? It could be just your wife and my wife. But
I think it's something similar in the same vein. I mean, have those. I've talked to many PTA groups already, and look forward to talking to the rest. I think everyone has a role in this, and from working with Texas PTA and when I was at the center and presenting at their conference, we want parents to. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want parents to be confident and comfortable that we're taking care of their kids while they're here. So ask those questions, talk with your kids, ask them, did you have a lockdown drill today? How did it go? And, have those conversations that, unfortunately you don't always want to have, but we're in that time where, we need to have them. So be engaged in that, just like you are academics, just like you are athletics. Fine arts, ask them about those types of things at their school. Our new website should have some protocols for parents. It is. So it's going to have, so what I tried to do with the website was give some of that information. So what is a lockdown drill? Points, what is a lockout? What is an evacuation? Because if we're communicating with you saying, hey, this campus is in a lockout, I want a parent to know what that means. Right. Because it's if the worst thing that can happen is if we're trying to keep people away from the campus and parents don't understand what's going on and they come to campus, it's going to make a bigger emergency out of something that maybe wouldn't have to go there. Well, I appreciate it, Joe. Yeah, enjoyed it. While we're stuck in traffic. Yes, in front of one of our schools. Yes. And that's a good thing, really. That is a good thing. Trying to figure out how the thing is going. All right.